Okay, so now we've got a task 2 essay. So it's an agree or disagree essay, and the topic is about advertising. So the topic is, today the high sales of popular consumer goods reflect the power of advertising and not the real needs of the society in which they are sold. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Okay, so I want you to give your opinion. Are people buying goods because advertisement is so powerful, and not because they're buying goods which they really need? Okay, so that's the sort of debate that they want you to discuss. Let's see what this candidate has done. So we've got the introduction. Advertising has always been a crucial part in the world of marketing. Okay, so crucial part, it's not really specific enough to what you're talking about, so I would have replaced that with factor. Advertising has always been a crucial factor in the world of marketing. In recent years, we have seen a significant increase in the number of advertisements. Okay, I would have a significant increase, that's good. These are 2 short sentences. This could be linked together with a connective here. Sort of like in the world of advertising, you say, and in recent years, we've seen a significant increase in the number of advertisements. Or you could say something like, with a significant increase in the number of advertisements in recent years. Okay, and just try and make that a little bit more connected, a little bit more complex sentence to try and improve your grammar score. So then they go on, it is argued that people tend to buy goods by being mesmerized by the products in advertisements. So again, we've got another short sentence here. So if you look, we've had, this kind of has written 3 short sentences in their introduction. And then if we look, we can see we've got another short sentence here. And then a 5th one here. Okay, so the first thing I'm thinking when I'm looking at this paragraph, they should be connecting these sentences more, and that's going to affect their grammar score because they're not writing the complex sentences that they need. So we look at the actual sentence number 3. So we've got, it is argued that people tend to buy goods by being mesmerized by the products. The advertisements, mesmerized is a good vocabulary word. Although it is most likely that most of the purchasing is conducted by being exposed to advertisements. We've got a repeat of the word most. So I would get rid of one of these mosts. So I would get the, although it is likely that most of their purchasing is conducted by being exposed to advertisements. And then this should really be linked, okay? Because we've got an although here. And although you need to be althoughing against something else. So this should be, so what you're really saying is you're saying this is opinion number 1, but I believe opinion number 2. Okay, so this is why this needs to be linked here. Although it is likely that most of their purchasing is conducted by being exposed to advertisements, I believe that it is carried out under necessity. Or it is carried out under the necessity, or it is carried out, this should really be, you need to show cause and effect. So it really should be because of necessity, or carried out due to necessity, or something like that. So because this candidate started this sentence with although here, that's why we need to link these 2 sentences together. Because otherwise you finish the although sentence and your thought is, although what? Okay, so that's why you need to have a longer sentence for although. So overall, I thought pretty good introduction. They give their opinion, which is good. They give me the I believe what they're going to argue. They give some good summary background paraphrasing about advertising in general. They use some good vocabulary. Main weakness, too many short sentences. Lots of these sentences should be linked together. Okay, so one thing you can do if you're able to have time at the end before you finish writing is to go back and read through your writing. And sometimes when you read through it again, you notice things like this that you actually wrote in short sentences. So an easy edit to do is when you finished writing, go back, it just takes 1 minute, check through what you've written and see if there's anywhere that you can connect some of these shorter sentences through together. Okay, so that's something I always advise candidates to do. The only other thing that I want to pick up on is in sentence number 3, when they say it is argued that. It's fine to say it is argued that. People, like, there's nothing actually wrong with it. I really dislike that phrase. So I think it's too vague and it's too general. It is argued that people tend to buy goods. It is argued by who? Who argues it? Is it a popular argument? Is it a good argument? I think it's a little bit vague. So I think for candidates who are really trying to push up into that sort of band 6+, it's better to, rather than say it is argued that, you can replace it with other phrases like, it may seem obvious that. So if something is obvious, something is very clear, everyone thinks it. So it may seem obvious that it is dangerous to drive in snowy weather. However, blah, 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 blah. We can say many people assume that. So that's sort of like saying something's common sense or common knowledge. So many people assume that all rich people are happy. Many people assume that eating fast food every day is unhealthy for you, or something like that. So I always recommend that people replace "it is argued that" with a phrase like one of these, which sounds a little more high level. You've got some better vocabulary going in there, and it sounds a little bit more specific than just saying "it is argued that." Okay, but overall I thought this was a pretty good introduction, and I didn't have too many issues with it. So if we look at the first paragraph, first sentence, advertisements can act as a strong persuasive device to seemingly hypnotize people into buying goods and services. Okay, this is a really great opening topic sentences. So we've got some good vocabulary, strong persuasive device, excellent vocabulary, seemingly hypnotize people, again, excellent phrase, good vocabulary. This is a good topic sentence. It lets me know, first off, we're going to talk about the power of advertisement and how advertisement can persuade people to buy things that maybe they don't really need. Okay, then we're going to do first and foremost, excellent connective. I like that a lot. First and foremost, no one manages to get out of watching advertisements, and people may be addicted to particular messages in these kinds of repetitive advertising. Okay, so again, I think this is a really good sentence. The only issue I have is with to get out of watching advertisements. So in this context, to get out of watching advertisements doesn't really fit. So we're going to say you're trying to get out of something. We usually use it to talk about some kind of necessary thing or obligation. So, for example, I would say something like, I really don't want to go to school tomorrow, so I'm going to try and get out of going to school. Or I'm going to talk to my teacher tomorrow to try to get out of having to hand in my homework. So in this context, it means it's something that you're going to have to do. But when it comes to watching adverts, it's not something that's compulsory. It's not something you have to do. So the better way to phrase it is that no one manages to escape. Okay, so advertisements are inescapable. Advertisements are everywhere. So it's more natural to say no one manages to escape, or no one can escape advertisements around us, rather than to get out of. But that's a sort of like a minor issue, and I know what the candidate means when they're saying to get out of. And I can see that they're trying to use a sort of less common vocabulary in this sentence, okay? But it didn't quite come off. So let's look at the next sentence. For example, repeated advertising music for snacks may linger in their mind, and as a result, they choose the snacks when shopping rather than a variety of alternatives, okay? Again, this is a really good sentence. I like it a lot. Why do I like it? We've got a clause, they've got a complex sentence, they've got good vocabulary, they've got linger in their mind. And it's a good example. So they're saying, for example, the music for snacks might, in your head when you're in the supermarket, look at the snack, you think of the music, you buy the snack. Okay, so that's the power of advertisement. It's a good example, well explained, complex sentence, good sentence. Okay, so next we've got, in addition, people are brainwashed even though they know that certain ads are exaggerated. To be specific, the repeated sight of scrumptious food may result in that person feeling hungry and succumbing to the advertisement at last. So again, this candidate is using really good vocabulary, and it's all vocabulary which is specifically linked to advertisement, persuasion, buying things, consumer behavior. Okay, so we've got brainwashed, which is excellent, good choice. Certain acts are exaggerated. Again, good vocabulary. Succumbing to the advertisement at last. Again, excellent phrase, good vocabulary. Okay, so this candidate is really showing me that they can paraphrase a lot, they have good control of vocabulary, and they can use very specific words. The only issue I would take with these last couple of sentences is when they actually say people are brainwashed, it's a little bit too strong. It's saying 100% of the time people are brainwashed. So usually when we're writing more formal academic English, we try to be more cautious. So in addition, people, we would say something like people can be brainwashed. You could even say people are usually, or many people are. So something like that would make it a little bit more cautious and sound a little bit more formal, even though they know that certain nouns are exaggerated. So to be specific, the repeated side of scrumptious food. The only real issue I have with here is the use of scrumptious. They're trying to use a high-level vocabulary word. It's just a weird word in English. It's quite an old-fashioned word. Maybe my grandma would describe something as scrumptious. I've never used the word in conversation. No one in my family or my friends would describe something as scrumptious. It's the kind of word that is in the dictionary, but in reality, British people never say it. So maybe a better thing that I would actually say, or we would actually use, would be the repeated side of, we say, mouth-watering. Or we would say mouth-wateringly delicious, or something like that. So you can use delicious, but you just need to jazz it up with another high-level word, okay? So the repeated side of mouth-wateringly delicious food, or mouth-wateringly photographed food, something like that. So to be said, the repeated side of mouth-wateringly photographed food may result in that person feeling hungry and succumbing to the advertisement at last. So that would sound a lot more natural to me than scrumptious food. But I can see what the candidate's doing, but it's just not used in a natural way. The only other thing I would suggest for this candidate was when they're talking about this, the using exaggerating and showing images of food, is I would extend this example a little bit more, give some more specifics. So you could talk about photoshopping. So it's exaggerated because it's photoshopped to look more delicious than it actually is. So I don't know, you could give an example, maybe something like McDonald's. When you see what the burger is supposed to look like, and then you actually buy the burger and it's actually different in reality. So use a specific example like that. And that would make this better, but overall it's a very strong paragraph. So then we go on to the next paragraph. Nevertheless, it seems to me that people tend to make a purchase with their own judgment. Okay, again, good, strong opening sentence. We've got a good connective. Nevertheless, it seems to me they're now giving me their opinion. So this was a very good opening sentence. To begin with, high sales of popular products can be achieved by consumers repurchasing. Okay, again, I don't have any problems with the sentence. Good sentence. Even if they bought it simply because of the advertisement, buying it again after use, or after using it is because they are satisfied with the product and need it. Yep, so this is good. So even if they bought it at first, should be added in here. Even if they bought it at first simply because of the advertisement, buying again after using it is because they are satisfied with the product and need it. I like this. This is a very strong argument. It's very persuasive. It's logical. It makes sense to me. It's a good argument to be making. Moreover, modern people are competent to examine the quality of the products. So again, the only issue I have is the use of competent. Modern people are competent to examine. Sounds unnatural and isn't a very natural way of saying it. So I would rephrase that as to modern people have the competence to examine the quality of the products. For instance, even if they get to know cosmetics through advertisements, they are skillful to go over ingredients and look carefully through reviews before deciding whether to purchase the cosmetics. And so one thing would be the cosmetics in question. Okay, so what do I mean by saying purchase the cosmetics in question? So to purchase the cosmetics we were just talking about. So again, we've got the issue of they are skillful to go over ingredients. So this is, again, they have the skills to go over ingredients. Is better. So they are skillful, they are competent. It doesn't really sound natural. A better way to say it. So you could say the same, they have the skills. They have the awareness to go over it. They have the know-how. Is another way to say it. or they have another ways to say it in English is they have the wherewithal. So wherewithal just means like competence, ability, street smarts, knowledge, something like that. So rather than saying so they are skillful too, it sounds odd, it sounds awkward. It's better to say they have the skills to go over the ingredients, or something like that. So yeah, again, this is a really good paragraph. They have complex sentences. They have a strong argument. They have good linking words and connectives. So we've got moreover, we've got for instance, we've got nevertheless, even if they did something, buying in because. Okay, so a very strong paragraph. I've got very few improvements or criticisms for the candidate. So let me go to the conclusion. So in conclusion, as people do not lack knowledge or experience enough to be misled into buying things by advertising alone, although advertisements can be one of the factors to decide to purchase goods, people buy things by necessity. Okay, so our first issue is that we've got an although and an as. So these two words together make this sentence confusing. As people do not lack knowledge or experience enough to be misled into buying things by advertising alone, so we need to get rid of one of these. Okay, so we can have as people do that, or we can get rid of as and we can keep although. So in conclusion, people do not lack knowledge or experience enough to be misled into buying things by advertising alone, although advertisements can be one of the factors to decide to purchase goods. People buy things by necessity. Okay, being able to use although is a really good way to improve your vocabulary and improve your grammar in IELTS, but sometimes a lot of candidates make mistakes like these where they don't use although correctly, or they use two words and they sort of negate although by using two similar words. So one thing I would suggest to this candidate, because they already had an issue with although earlier in the essay, is to go back and check that they know how to use it correctly in a sentence. But again, overall, I thought this conclusion was fine. They summarized their two arguments. They could, if they wanted to, add in an extra sentence if they had time, just to sort of expand on their points or why they believe that necessity is more important than the advertisement. But overall, I thought it was very good. So for the scores for task achievement, it was a very excellent, well-argued essay. Their examples were logical. The argument made logical sense to me. The only thing to improve is I'm thinking they could extend some of the arguments with more specific examples. So if they wanted to keep improving. Part of that, though, is when I'm always telling candidates you need to extend, you need to add more in. Obviously, that takes time in the exam. So if you're at the limit of how much you can write in the time you have, then obviously hitting a 7 for task achievement is great. And hitting what you need to do to obviously push beyond that is being able to write more in a shorter time. So you still have time for planning, you still have time for editing and checking, but it's just being able to get more confident writing English accurately faster. Okay, so that's the skill. So for this candidate, obviously I'm saying 7, your essay was great. If you were trying to improve, you would need to extend and give more specific examples. To do that, you need to work on being able to write accurately faster so you can physically write more in the IELTS, because obviously the timing is so tight. Coherence and cohesion I thought was great. There was lots of linking words. It flowed nicely together. There was a logical progression to everything, which I thought was great. For vocabulary, I gave a 6.5. They had, like I pointed out, they had some inaccuracies. They were trying to use less common words. Sometimes they didn't quite do it correctly, so that was the only thing that pulled them down slightly, but I appreciated that they really did try to use a variety of language, and they showed me that they obviously have a good vocabulary when they were writing. And then in grammar, 7, they used a nice mix of simple and complex sentences, which I love to see. Lots of lovely complex sentences in this answer. And there was several sentences where I didn't have any grammar corrections at all. So they were writing largely accurate sentences, which is the other big challenge to push from a 6 to a 7, is being able to write a lot of error-free sentences. Okay, and this candidate was starting to do that. So overall, I give them a 7 for this task 2 essay. I thought it was well written. I thought they had a logical, coherent argument. And the only thing I would suggest to them is double checking some of the vocabulary words I highlighted, and also working on the speed of their writing so that they can start to extend and expand their arguments a little bit more.